Hey, class. Just thought I'd talk a little bit about the comparative philosophy presentation assignment. Let me actually get out of full screen here. Get comparative philosophy presentation. So you can find the assignment in the assignment tools in the course site. Let me talk a little bit about the instructions and maybe I can give you some advice. All right, so you'll be creating a PowerPoint slide. Okay, PPT stands for Microsoft PowerPoint. You've got two choices of topics. The first topic is to compare pre-Socratic and classical philosophy. So, in other words, ancient Greek philosophy up to and including Plato. So that includes the pre-Socratic philosophers that you wrote about in week 1. Okay, compare them to modern philosophy. Compare and contrast the concerns of modern and ancient philosophy. Do they care about the same problems? What are the big differences? Can these be reconciled? Why or why not? Okay, so that's your first choice of topic. That's option 1. Option 2, consider the debate between rationalism and empiricism. And so we've got a section of the course on those. What are the major differences between these two traditions in their approach to the theory of knowledge and metaphysics? The topic description goes on there. I'm just going to say, to me, the first option seems hard. Okay, I didn't write these prompts. Comparing the sort of problems and questions of classical philosophy to the problems and questions of modern philosophy, challenging question. Okay, so I'll just that's sort of a warning. Now, I'll take that into account when I grade, but I wouldn't expect to find a sort of simple, tidy answer to the question anywhere. Okay, it's going to require, I think, quite original analysis of both philosophical traditions. The difference between rationalism and empiricism is a little more straightforward. I think they're competing theories that are addressing the same question. Let me just quickly, I'm going to go back for a second. And if I go to content, let me just talk a little bit about what's relevant to what. So weeks 1 and 2, the material, in weeks 1 and 2, the material is on the ancient philosophers, classical philosophers. Okay, let's go down a little further here. Well, week 1, actually. There we go. The ancient Greek philosophical tradition. All right. So that's relevant to these assignments. Week 2, there's more. Socrates and Plato. So that's what those first 2 weeks are relevant to. And then in weeks 3 and 4, we get the modern philosophers. And 3 and 4 are really where you get empiricism and rationalism, right? Rationalist metaphysics and epistemology is right there. That's in week 3. Leibniz's law and Descartes. Leibniz was another rationalist. And then week 4 is more modern philosophy as opposed to classical or ancient Greek. And in week 4, we've got empiricism. Okay, so hopefully that will help you find some of what you need for this assignment. I would also recommend looking at in fact, I'd strongly recommend looking at primary sources, right? So if you're writing about rationalism and empiricism, for the rationalist part of the assignment, talk about the original Descartes texts. Talk about this, cite, refer to the stuff that Descartes himself wrote, not just the summaries of it in the course site or elsewhere. All right, so those are the topics. Present research on each tradition that clearly discusses both sides of the relevant debate. Include a proper references works cited slide in APLA or MLA. Okay, this is very important. A lot of people, this is maybe the biggest source of issues for my students at APUS. Let me mention a couple areas, a couple sort of problem areas that come up often, okay? If you cite a source at the end of your assignment in the works cited section, that does not mean that you can use the exact wording from that source without putting it in quotation marks. It also doesn't mean that you can use ideas from that source without an in-text citation. So after you use an idea from one of your sources, you put an in-text citation next to it. For example, parentheses with the author's name, the year the source was published, and the page number. That, for example, maybe there's no page number, then you leave that out. Okay? Putting something in your works cited section at the end of the assignment does not mean that you can forget about quotation marks or in-text citations. If you use somebody's ideas, you've got to have an in-text citation for them, even if you don't use the exact words. Okay, if you paraphrase somebody's idea, you need an in-text citation next to it. There are lots of resources on plagiarism. Let's see, I guess there's none in this assignment. Well, here's one thing I would recommend. Plagiarism, Purdue OWL. Google plagiarism, Purdue OWL. And this gives you an overview. Okay, this is quite good. I recommend this overview if you're not familiar. Plagiarizing can seriously hurt your grade. And you can plagiarize even if you don't intend to. Okay, best practices. PowerPoints have bullets on the slide that are explained in the notes section. So don't have huge chunks of text, huge paragraphs in the body of the slide. Have short bullet points, and then put your explanations in the notes section. You can narrate your presentation, adding an audio recording to the slide. Okay, if you have trouble with the notes section, you can put your transcript in a Word document. Okay, clear in-text citations on the slide, not just in a works cited section or references section at the end. Okay, those are the instructions and some tips. Now there's one more thing I think I should talk about. The rubric is right here. So you're going to want to look at that. The rubric lets you know how you'll be graded. So it lets you know, what you really want to focus on, what you want to be sure to do correctly. Here we've got use information effectively. And then if I hover over this, I see communicates, organizes, and synthesizes information from sources to fully achieve a specific purpose with clarity and depth. Provides the audience with substantive information. Okay, substantive information. Tell me substantively exactly what empiricism is. Tell me exactly what rationalism is. Maybe give me some arguments for each side. Use good sources, base that on good sources. Presentation organization. The organization of the presentation includes an introduction, body, conclusion, and properly formatted reference works cited page. Presentations should have an introduction. Start out your presentation by saying, here's what this presentation is about, right? Here's what I'll show you concerning rationalism and empiricism, or classical versus modern philosophy. Graphics and appearance is another rubric criterion here. effective use of bullets and spacing on both sides, just formatting your slides well. Sources and evidence demonstrates skillful use of high quality, credible, relevant sources to develop ideas that are appropriate for the discipline. And finally, writing quality. Okay, so good luck on this assignment. I hope you find it interesting. I always find these assignments interesting to read.